everybody? Welcome to the Comic Game Movie Show. My name's Deshaun, and today I'm here to talk about something that I've been meaning to talk about, but I'm just folding this into this video. Now, just to all people know, maybe I'll post that video up one day. One day I made a video talking about one thing that DC can do that Marvel can't do. I don't think I ever posted it up, so whatever. I might just fold it into this video because these two things kind of tie together. Recently, the big head of whatever, Warner Brothers is who running DC, basically all but said they're not trying to do the cinematic universe thing anymore, that they're letting the directors do their thing. They're just doing these individual movies that are individually driven by individual directors doing their own thing, which ties back into something I had always thought. Now, I know I come off like a DC hater, even though something that occurred to me, I've given the last 3 DC things I've reviewed an 8.5. Hell, I was debating giving the Batman a 9. So yeah, I'm a DC hater. I gave the Batman an 8.5 to a 9. I gave Suicide Squad an 8.5, and I gave fucking Peacemaker an 8.5. The last 3 DC things I saw, I gave them 8.5 or higher scores. So yeah, not a DC hater, but I digress. I know some people may think that. But there is one aspect of DC that I do agree they have over the MCU / Marvel Studios, which is they have the luxury. I say luxury because, when you got this big ass behemoth of the MCU, it's so massive. There's so much going on. Marvel can't really afford to go do some off-brand shit, to go do some, let this Artur guy come in and do his take on the Incredible Hulk. Let this Artur guy come in and do his take on Thor. They can't really do that because for one, Marvel, they have the MCU. So everything has to work together, and if you got some dude doing his own thing, it ain't gonna work. For 2, it'll be overexposure of the characters, and you don't want to have confusion out there. If you have 2 of the same characters made by Marvel out there, it's just gonna be confusing. It's the reason why Marvel killed off Quicksilver and Fox never used the Scarlet Witch, which because they didn't want confusion. They didn't want confusion, and at that point, about 20, what was that, 2014? In 2014, no one knew Disney was going to buy Fox. So at that point in time, they thought that shit was just separate. But, that's why they did that, because they didn't want confusion. Same thing here. They're not going to just let some dude come in and do that. And there's a whole bunch of other reasons as well. But DC doesn't have to worry about that because they don't have a cinematic universe to begin with. They have remnants. Is it remnants or remnants? I don't know how I'm saying it. I'm pronouncing that wrong, probably. They have vestiges, just pieces of what was the concept of a cinematic universe. But those pieces are getting spread farther and further away. Like someone just dropped, it's like someone dropped a puzzle on the floor, and instead of sitting down and putting it back together, DC's kind of going, well, we could just move it over there. We can move this piece over there. We can move this piece over there. We can move that piece over there. They're moving it further and further away. Like you can't say, you watch Aquaman, you watch Wonder Woman 84, and you realize that these 2 films should take place theoretically in the same universe, but they are no longer worried about if it makes sense anymore. It doesn't actually make a lick of sense that Wonder Woman is flying around and publicly known as Wonder Woman, well, not even Wonder Woman, just publicly known in Wonder Woman 84, after we just watched her in a previous movie say she hasn't gotten involved in anything human-related till now in the Justice League. So, BVS. So it doesn't actually make any sense. But they don't care about that anymore because these brands are spreading further and further apart. And this is one of the things that I say DC has for its advantage. It's failed upwards. DC has failed upwards because in the process of failing to be Marvel, it just is what it is. In the process of failing to be Marvel, they were forced to allow auteur directors to come in and do whatever they want because they just needed something to win. And when they realized the cinematic universe thing ain't working, they were just like, hey, you want to come make your Joker movie, your solo rated R Joker movie that takes place in like the fucking, what was that, the 1970s or some shit, 1980? I don't think it was like the 70s or 80s or some shit. Come in and do your Joker movie. You want to make your, hey, Matt Reeves, you want to make your noir Batman movie that's going to be an entirely different Batman, entirely different cast, an entirely different world? Come in and do that. Like, hey, James Gunn, you want to go make your Suicide Squad movie? It may be, it's going to be loosely a sequel to the original Suicide Squad. Okay, come in and do that. You want to make your show Peacemaker? Come in and do that. Like, that's kind of what DC is now. Is they're just free reign, and the freedom you have over there for a director. I will say this: DC can hit higher heights than Marvel can. Yes, you heard me say it. DC can hit higher highs than the MCU can, but their lows will be so bad that they will outweigh some of their highs. But that's besides the point. They can hit higher highs if everything clicks and everything hits the ceiling, because they're allowing those directors to do whatever they want. Now, granted, like I said, allowing the directors to do whatever they want, it's not going to work one day, and it's going to be really awful piece of shit film that's going to be worse than anything the MCU's ever produced. But it can hit those highs, and that's the one advantage that DC has, is that they failed so bad at trying to have a cinematic universe that now they're like, we're going to be the guys who just let people do whatever they want. And you know what? That's not a bad place to be. I think this is a lane that can be dominated by DC. I really don't want the MCU to get involved in making off spin-off movies, chasing Oscars and stuff of that nature, because that's just not the brand, and that's just not what they're about right now. They're the only fully functioning cinematic universe in the world, in the game. You mean, sure, like fully functioning, that works on the highest level that it can? It's the MCU. They don't need to get that off thing game. They don't really need to get involved in that. And DC can't do what they're doing. So it's great that DC and Marvel have both found solidified places in this world, in this comic book world, to do. Now, some people are going to argue that they're going to love DC more because they think all Marvel movies are the same, which is ridiculous, and I've argued that before. You're a complete and utter idiot moron. You should, not be allowed to even speak on the internet if you think that Guardians of the Galaxy and The Winter Soldier are identical films. If you watch WandaVision and then you watch, Hawkeye, you go, damn, these look exactly the same. You're a moron. You don't know what you're talking about, and no one should ever take you seriously. But, I digress. There's going to always be those people, and those people are going to lean towards DC. So there you go. People who don't like the MCU, you got somewhere to go. You got somewhere to go. And if you're like me, where you like both, I love Marvel, and I really, really like DC. So I am enjoying both. DC's on a run right now. They've popped out three good projects in a row. Granted, they just pushed back like their entire slate just earlier today, but digress. This is a positive video for DC, because I really do think they have finally found their niche. They finally found their area, their lane in this whole, comic book verse thing, which is solo films by one director doing their own thing that's not connected to anything, which is fine. You'll never reach Avengers Endgame level of money with that. Like, I'm just gonna tell you right now, I don't care how good Matt Reeves' trilogy ends up, and his third Batman movie ain't making $2.8 billion. Just telling you. I mean, the third Spider-Man movie made $100 million more, no, $200 million more than the Batman. So the Batman ain't catching Endgame. Like, that's the problem. Like, I'm curious of how that's gonna work, because at a certain point, like, DC is gonna start, like, getting the itch, especially if Marvel puts out another Avengers movie and it makes it to the 2-point-something billions. Like, I could see the guys over at DC, soon to be Discovery, because Discovery is about to own fucking, Warner Brothers. I could see them kind of being like, man, I really, that Marvel money. Because that's what happened in the first place. That's how DC got in this fucking mess in the first place, is because they saw how much those Avengers movies were making, and they went, we want some of that. And they tried to fast track their way there, and it didn't work. But, like I said, I digress. This is a positive. I wanted this to be a positive DC video. I think they found their niche. They found their lane. this letting all the let the directors and writers and whatnot cook on these individual projects thing is a great place to be. You don't have to connect anything. Just don't worry about that cinematic universe stuff. You don't know how to do it. You don't want to get involved in it. Just leave it be. Let Marvel do the cinematic universe thing, because they're the only ones in the world who know how to do it correctly, apparently. You know, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I sort of like the CW verse for a little bit, but that thing got whacked real fucking fast. Kong versus Godzilla, I mean, like, it's fucking done, basically. Like, you did the biggest thing you could do. Like, anything else would just be overkill. I mean, you did Mechagodzilla and King is it Gogoria or Dodoria? I always say his name wrong. And King and the fucking three-headed dragon thing, so you pretty much done the biggest hits. I mean, ain't shit else you can do now. So, you know, that's just like, so, like, the only game in town in this cinematic universe thing is Marvel. Which is why it pisses me off, on a side note, that so many people want Marvel to change and do something different and go up. And which is like, wait a minute. No one else can do what Marvel can do. At all. Yet, people want Marvel to start doing what other people can do to prove they can do it. So no one can do us. So no one can do us because we're that good at what we're doing. That you guys are bored of us being so good at what we're doing, that you would be more interested in us doing something else that someone else has already done. Anywho, it's because people got this delusion in their mind that if the MCU disappeared, that suddenly some other cinematic universe would emerge in its place to become a new thing, when they're delusional. Anyway, thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Movie Show. Please like, subscribe. And what do you feel about this new direction for DC? Solo movies, off, directors just doing their own thing. They are giving up on the cinematic universe. Granted, it could be full of shit. See the Flash movie and they're like, oh, this is a new reality where Ezra Miller didn't choke out a woman. Anyways, thank you guys again. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.